In a famous race off Newport, Rhode Island in 1937, Harold Vanderbilt's yacht, Ranger, outsailed T.O.M. Sopwith's Endeavour, representing Britain, to win the America's Cup. Both men had laid out well over $1 million to ready their boats for the contest. In fact, the fabulously wealthy J.P. Morgan once loftily remarked, "If you have to ask the price of a yacht, you can't afford one." It's 1974. An island off the shore of Lake Ontario near Kingston. Hundreds of yachtsmen have assembled from all over eastern Canada and the northern states for a very different kind of race, with a very different kind of yacht. They're light enough, made of fiberglass, so they're practically indestructible, last a lifetime. They're self-bailing, so they're safe enough. Though he wasn't the designer of it, the moving spirit behind the enterprise was Ian Bruce. The little yacht is called the Laser. It's the boat that Ian built.
Okay. 15 seconds to the gun. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. How many?
The main appeal of the Laser is its speed and maneuverability. It's a racing boat. Ian Bruce himself was in the race.
12.22. 33.87. 12.86. 42.43. 35.10. 12.37. 18.41. 287, 6176, 646.
Ian didn't win.
3418.
He was a little slow coming in over the finishing line. He placed 10th.
8179, 4259, 1866.
But he sailed home happily enough. He bought his first boat with money his father gave him as a prize for not smoking to the age of 21. He's been sailing seriously for 20 years, and he's very good at it. He represented Canada at the Olympics in 1960 and 1972. He has twice been world champion of the International 14 class, the last time in England in 1967. At his summer place in the Laurentians in Quebec, Bruce has a duplicate of the 14-footer that won him the championship.
Okay, give it a hard tug. Okay, hold that. Okay.
It had been designed by his friend and fellow sailor, Bruce Kirby.
We're off.
Ian Bruce at that time, 1967, was working with a firm of industrial designers in Montreal. Sailing was his passion, but the cost of taking part in international 14 competitions was getting beyond most people, including himself. He decided to form a little company which he called Performance Sailcraft and build his own.
Well, the start of Performance Sailcraft is really the story about the change of a hobby into a business. Because after 1967, after I'd come back from England sailing the 14, we'd been reasonably successful over there. And a friend of mine, Andre Julien, and I realized that the International 14 class was going to die, really, unless we could find a source of inexpensive boats or unless we ourselves could produce them. And he and I decided that we would get together and form a small partnership to produce the International 14 using my boat, which had been so successful in England, as a mold. Are you all set?
I think so.
Okay, go. Good one. B plus, bit of a splash.
Daddy!
For 2 years, Ian worked 8 hours a day at the design company and another 8 hours each night with Performance Sailcraft. He had no time for sailing, no time for his growing family.
Why not a cannonball?
Okay, I'll do a cannonball.
Despite all his efforts, his business wasn't getting anywhere. The International 14 proved too sophisticated and expensive to have any broad appeal,
Oh, it hurts so much, a cannonball.
Come on, try it.
and Ian was ready to call it quits.
Well,
on.
do I have to do a cannonball?
Try it.
Can we do cannonball?
Yeah,
Really?
real cannonball.
Oh, God, okay. Oh, my feet!
Before giving up entirely, however, Ian phoned his old friend Bruce Kirby. They had first met at a yacht club in Ottawa. Kirby was a journalist and a sailor with a passion for yacht designing. Ian asked him if he could come up with a boat that might keep Performance Sailcraft from going under.
I always doodle on the telephone. Because I'm a newspaper reporter from a way back, I always have a pencil in my hand at the telephone, and because I'm a sometimes yacht designer, but my doodles are nearly always yacht designs. And when Ian and I were talking about the boat, I was in fact doodling the boat that was going through my mind.
While I was speaking to him on the phone, there was absolutely no response. And finally, after I had expounded to him on what I thought the boat should be, I said, "Are you still there?" And he said, "Yes, I'm here. I've got it designed."
One of the things we agreed on was that it should look like a boat, and rather than a cardboard box or what have you. And so that was really the criteria, was a small sailboat with reasonable performance that looked like a little yacht. And that's the way it began. The actual designing of the boat did not take long, but the research into trying to figure out what type of boat would fill the bill was the big thing. In other words, a boat that would perform reasonably well, but at the same time appeal to a lot of people.
The third person involved in the creation of the laser was Hans Fogg. Fogg is considered by many to be the best small boat sailor in the world. He came to Toronto in 1969 from Denmark and set up a business making sails.
Ian Bruce came one day and asked me in the summer of 1970 to make this little sail, design this little sail for this little boat. He would like to go to the competition race which called the American Teacup, that was held in Lake Geneva in Wisconsin in the fall, in October 1970. So during the summer, I made up this little sail, designed it as best as we could do, but we couldn't really test it out very well until the boat was ready. And the boat was only ready a couple of days before the race started.
The America's Teacup. There, the competition is open to all boats that sell for less than $1,000. Boat builders and designers from across the continent were invited to submit entries.
On Monday morning, with Hans Fogg sailing the boat, the Weekender, as it was then called, hit the water for the first time. If I recall correctly, we were third in the first race and second in the second race. Hans wasn't entirely satisfied with the sail, so he recut it somewhere near the middle of the night. We put the sail back on the boat the next morning, and the laser won both its races. And at that point, it started.
A new plant was established in the suburb of Montreal. $800 lasers were built and sold in the first year, and the company's gross income grew from a modest $75,000 to nearly $500,000. Still, there were problems.
Nixon put on his 10% surcharge, and sales just went absolutely to zero. Now, we made what we felt was an historic decision to inventory boats for the first time in our existence. It was an interesting session with the banks. We told them that we would like to inventory about 700 or 800 boats, and in the following year we were going to sell at least 2,000 boats. Well, if you walk into somebody in the middle of Montreal, miles away from the sea, and tell them that after 1 year in business you're going to sell 2,000 sailboats, it is a difficult pill to swallow. However, it was swallowed. We got through the year quite nicely, and of course since then the production has gone from 2,000 boats to 3,100 boats to 4,600 boats, and next year to 5,500 boats.
And that was just the Montreal plant. In 1971, Ian opened a Performance Sailcraft plant in California. It produces 2,000 lasers each year. In 1972, they started up a plant at Banbury in England, another 2,000 lasers a year. By 1973, 750 lasers were being built annually in both Australia and New Zealand. A plant was opened in Ireland in the spring of 1974 with a production capability of 4,000 lasers per year, all destined for the huge European market. 750 lasers will be built in Brazil in 1975. laser had conquered the sailing world.
Attention, attention. La compagnie, 7 mois, est exactement, a exactement 5 ans. Et je suis très heureuse à dire, pour la première temps, dans ces 5 ans, la compagnie est arrivée avec un profit. J'ai dit toujours que quand le jour arrive que nous avons démontré un profit, c'est notre intention de partager, c'est le mot. Merci, monsieur. Claire Gravel. Félicitations. Renald Gravel. Tabarnak. If, in fact, community sailing is developing and is at the stage that we think it's at, and we're going to find out very quickly in this particular year we're in where we have an energy shortage. If that move toward sailing comes to the fore this year and we don't have the boats to satisfy it, where are the boats coming from?
Well, perhaps I was precipitous in saying that we don't know enough about that. Seems to me now that when I think about it, getting a good demonstration of the boat and in the middle of a snowstorm.
Ward McKim is an Ottawa lawyer, an expert sailor, and longtime friend and advisor to Ian Bruce.
At Calgary, the second one, of course, in the Willow Inn, was a spontaneous one from the ground up, which had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with this company. Really, basically did it. All of a sudden, a group of people found a way in which they could have a lot of fun together in an environment which they liked and in a boat which all of a sudden turned them on.
Up to now, sailing had been the province of the Yacht Club. That meant a hefty membership fee, as well as the attendant niceties that membership demanded. But the laser would change all that, as the patrons of the Willow Place Inn, Como, Quebec, were to discover.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
For the price of a laser, and with the cooperation of the friendly innkeeper who offered his waterfront in view of the potential bar profits, they found that they too could take up the sport, and with the laser's versatility, even add a few variations of their own.
Oh yeah, no rules. This makes or breaks it. Oh, you knew! 100. Come on, Barry, how's it going? Come on, Barry!
So you got a telex here from Akira. Due to global oil crisis, Japan industry and economy now under great confusion. Under this circumstance, quite difficult to conclude new contract to get resin which is essential to FRP boats. Therefore, I propose to you to withhold this project of production in Japan for time being and to keep on importing the boats.
The 25 boats that are there, Taco, Otani, and Acker have got these boats. They now are sailing. The list of competitors that they're inviting to the first inaugural regatta, that is sort of, I guess, traditional with us, that the introduction of the boat in Japan will be by invitation to the top racing sailors in Japan, and they have planned it in Japan for the 18th and 19th when I'm going to be there. They gave me a list.
Coincidence?
That's
ツイストしたままの状態になります。それを必ず差し込まれた時に、注意してください。グースネックのついてるサイドにセールのトップが来るように、そうしないと上で、セールが回りませんから。あとバテンが3本ありますので、バテンを3本入れていただいて、グースネックと同じ線上にまっすぐになるように。これがツイストしたまま立てちゃうとうまくセールが展開できません。
Ward McKim's prime concern is the international development of performance sailcraft. In 1974, he led them into Japan, a country where sailing is practically unheard of as a recreational pastime.
We're here in Japan because there are 104 million people here who have a short history of sailing. We think we have the product in which we can bring people to sailing and to take what historically has been considered a sport for the people that are rich and affluent, changing the concept from one of yachting to sailing, and sailing being a people's sport. And the Laser is a Volkswagen. It's an average person's boat. It's an every man's boat. And what we're trying to do here is to make that available to the Japanese.
As Canadian ambassador here, I'm extremely pleased to see this Montreal company, now of international stature, entering the Japanese market, and I hope that they will have tremendous success with this remarkable new craft. I hope to hear great things of the success of the Laser as a competitive craft and as a pleasure maker for many people, and I thank you for inviting us here today.
じゃあこれからレーザーのことについてプレジャークラフトとしてヨットとして非常に成功になると思います。
Thank you very much.
よろしく。
それでは皆さんコップになみなみとついていただきまして乾杯。乾杯。手もね。
Yes, but yachting harbors, there are more. Well, fishing harbors. There are lots of, and the fishermen don't like the yachtsmen.
Don't like. The old pride.
It's the old story.
It's up.
All about.
Not the yellow.
Up there. Which one? Because of the
It's a self-bailing cockpit.
Yeah.
So that when
it's
you
dry
do
when
that,
it's up. That's it, George. Dive in. That's the way to do it. That really comes up very quickly, doesn't it?
You need to practice that deliberately going over in order to practice the writing.
I'm not sure that it wasn't a Laser that was down there in Valley.
Over there in the red pen.
But where is the judge? He's usually on the Oh, they report on each other.
I think so, yeah. I think he's out way out in front.
Oh my goodness. Where?
Way
On
down
the
there.
first?
Looks as if he's going home.
In terms of marketing and in terms of bringing in additional boats to satisfy the market between now and the time that we can start manufacturing, we must have a company in Japan capable of doing the importation. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What we are interested in doing is making sure that the people that are involved with a shareholding in the company are people that are actively and directly interested in the development of the company and the development of sailing in Japan. And if they aren't, we don't want them as the shareholders.
Well, we've done that, we've shown that. So if we have your basic ideas as to the territory and the royalties and what technical services will be provided.
Japan, Korea.
Formosa.
No, we haven't discussed that. I haven't even thought about it. We're going to have enough to do just in Japan, I think, for a long time, aren't we? Japan Laser Association. Yaska and the Japan Laser Association. I think so.
The boat that Ian and Bruce and Hans built has come a long way.